Greetings, intrepid system failure listeners. Nate here with your weekly essay read. This one entitled Walking on Water and subtitled How Egyptian Sun Worship Shaped Christianity. But first, a little preamble. Death and rebirth are central themes of Christianity, both in its mythology. The story of Jesus is about coming back from the dead, and in its actual history. Christianity resurrected dead and dying older traditions and carried them forward into the Middle Ages and beyond. Three major examples, all readily allegorized by death and rebirth, are debt forgiveness, astronomical cycles, and ego death. These are the three main layers of Christian source material. Daily and annual astronomical cycles cause alternating day and night and the rhythms of the agricultural growing seasons. Because early Neolithic farmers so obviously owed their lives to the sun's comings and goings, they understandably worshipped it as their daily and annual savior. Symbols of sun worship were incorporated into Christianity because they were broadly recognizable to the pagan world into which Christianity was born. The Babylonian and Egyptian religions were both based on astronomy, and early Christians borrowed heavily from them. That's how astronomical cycles shaped Christianity as we recognize it today. And now, without further ado, here's Walking on Water. Egyptian Trinities. The ancient Egyptians, history's most famous sun worshippers, clustered their many gods and goddesses into triads, or groups of three. Dynastic Egypt's mythology has many layers, as its history spans 3,000 years. Though the stories and characters evolved considerably over that period, certain themes remained consistent. The Egyptian affinity for triads is revealed by their conception of the sun as three distinct gods. This triad was often centered around a father figure, Ra, the great god of the midday sun. His son Horus was frequently conceptualized as the morning sun, while Set, the dark god of chaos, sometimes personified the setting sun. It may be an etymological coincidence that the Proto-Indo-European word sed, meaning to sit, set, or place, sounds like Set, the god of chaos. But the word sed eventually became the set in our word sunset. Similarly, it may be that our words hour, horoscope, and horizon are unrelated to Horus, the Egyptian god of the morning sun. But it would have to be another giant coincidence. Dynastic Egypt was a cultural force in the Mediterranean basin for almost 3 millennia, from about 3000 BC to the 3rd century BC, when Alexander finally wiped it off the map. Inevitably, a version of their trinity found its way into Christianity as it sprang up inside the Roman Empire, along with many other borrowings from the Nile Delta. St. Peter's Obelisk. Though the sands of time long ago swallowed up the kingdoms of dynastic Egypt, their architecture is still evident worldwide. The Washington Monument soaring over the U.S. Capitol is a prime example. It's an Egyptian obelisk of modern construction. Obelisks are shaped like narrow stone columns that taper to a point. They're designed to announce the arrival of Ra, the god of the midday sun. Because these columns stand vertically, the presence of any shadow shows that the sun isn't directly overhead. But when an obelisk shadow disappears, the briefest glance reveals the awe-inspiring presence of the great god Ra at high noon. Another prominent obelisk, the one standing before St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, is an example of an obelisk that survived through the ages rather than being of modern construction like the Washington Monument. It was originally quarried in Heliopolis, Egypt, during the reign of Pharaoh Amenemhat II in the 20th century BC. In the 1st century AD, the Roman Emperor Caligula ordered the obelisk transported from Egypt to Rome. It was erected in the Circus of Caligula, which later expanded into the Circus of Nero, where St. Peter's Basilica stands today. That circus was infamous as a site where early Christians, including St. Peter, were martyred. Because of this, St. Peter's obelisk is sometimes poetically called a witness to St. Peter's death. In 1586, Pope Sixtus V moved it to the center of St. Peter's Square. At its peak, a cross replaced a bronze orb thought to hold the ashes of Julius Caesar. It still serves as the gnomon, or shadow-casting stylus, of a sundial mosaic laid out on the pavement stones of the square. St. Peter's obelisk illustrates how obelisks are a surprisingly prominent, but often overlooked, symbol in Christianity, especially within Catholicism. Christianity. Early Christians rapidly spread their new faith by using existing allegories to make it as comprehensible as possible to the populations of the Mediterranean basin. Trinities and obelisks are far from the only features of Egyptian sun worship they baked into Christianity. The cross is another prime example. A circle sliced into 4 equal quadrants is a near universal symbol for a calendar year divided into 4 seasons. It's too obvious. From the Native American medicine wheel to Stonehenge to dynastic Egypt, this shape has long symbolized the sun's annual cycle. Many Christian traditions still represent their faith with a circle and a cross, unaware of its pagan origins. The Christian cross merely has an elongated shaft to distinguish it. Presbyterian crosses and Celtic crosses are 2 common examples, and the title card of this essay also bears that familiar arrangement. There is also the crown of thorns. The Egyptians depicted their sun god Ra with a large red sun disk over his head. The Greek version of Ra, Helios, wore a radiant crown evoking the sun's rays. The Colossus of Rhodes was a giant bronze statue of Helios, complete with the spiked crown. Because the Statue of Liberty was based on the Colossus, she's also wearing the same solar crown. Today, the outermost layer of the sun's atmosphere is still called the corona, which is Latin for crown. Christians incorporated the best of both worlds into their faith. They adopted the sun disks of dynastic Egypt into the round halos of Christian iconography, while the radiant crown of Helios became the horrific crown of spiky thorns placed upon the head of the Christian Savior. A final, less gruesome piece of solar imagery lives on in the walking on water legend. Sun gods were thought to linger on water because the sun's rays reflected off its surface. Anyone who's ever enjoyed a sunrise or a sunset over water can appreciate the beautiful effect. Where the Egyptian sun god Ra was believed to have crossed the sky in a boat daily, Jesus preferred walking. Resurrection. Another consistent theme in Egyptian religion was the allegorization of the sun's daily death and rebirth as successive generations of fathers and sons. As with the etymology of words like set and horizon, it may be another linguistic coincidence that the words sun, S-O-N, and sun, S-U-N, have identical pronunciations. Where Egyptians worshipped the sun, S-U-N, Christians worshipped the sun, S-O-N. As the Egyptian religion evolved over 3 millennia, the figure of Horus evolved along with it. Older conceptions of Horus are called Horus the Elder, while newer versions go by Horus the Younger. The newer version of the son of the resurrected god Osiris. In this version of the tale, Osiris, the god of the afterlife, is murdered and dismembered by his brother Set. His wife, Isis, reassembles his body, and, through magic, conceives Horus, Osiris's posthumous son. Together, Osiris, Isis, and Horus form another Egyptian trinity. Osiris was the opposite of the noonday sun. He personified the invisible midnight sun. His position in the underworld made Osiris instrumental in the sun's nightly journey from death to rebirth. The pharaoh was considered the living Horus and, upon death, became associated with Osiris. The two gods had a cyclical relationship. The son, Horus, replaced the father, Osiris, ensuring the continuity of divine kingship. Horus was seen as a rebirth or continuation of Osiris. On a visceral level, ancient Egyptians understood that their livelihoods depended on the sun's daily and annual return. Before the geometry of the solar system was understood, the sun's apparent resurrection each morning and spring represented a deliverance from certain death. When Christianity arrived in the Mediterranean theater, it naturally used the existing religious milieu dominating that region to appeal to new converts. That's how, in the early days of Christianity, the features of Egyptian sun worship merged with Babylonian and other influences to shape the new religion. Christians today still celebrate the resurrection of the sun as their salvation. Many are unaware that this concept predates Christianity by thousands of years and has its roots in astronomy. Well, that's it for this week's audio essay, folks. If you'd like to read the print version of this, the text version, you can see the picture the picture that was alluded to with the title card in this essay. And you can also see the further materials section where I usually place a quote or two that other much better authors than me have written to flesh out the flavor of these essays. So if you're interested in signing up to receive these weekly essays in your email inbox so you'll never have to worry about missing one, you can accomplish that over at substack.org. And if you wish to get in touch with Brian or me, why, you can accomplish that over at substack.org as well. Alrighty, folks. Well, again, that's it for this week's weekly audio essay. I'll be back on Monday with another regularly scheduled System Failure podcast with Brian. We'll see you then.